So I believe that if you have with you somebody who studied it as your boss, as your superior, as your inferior, whatever, it is so important. Then you say to yourself, how could I manage things without such a person who knows something about diplomatic culture? Cultural diplomacy is knowing profoundly the cultural ambience of the other side. Understand what is important for the other side, what may offend the other side. And of course there is also the more traditional definition of culture, speaking about arts and things like that. I must admit that for me this is secondary. But sometimes when you are not aware of the culture of the other side, you may really blow a diplomatic meeting without knowing it. I mean, sometimes you have a meeting with somebody, a friend or a foe, and you feel after an hour or two that it was a very good meeting. And usually, people are going out of the meeting to a stakeout, and they said it was a very good meeting, and they mean it. The point is that sometimes after such a meeting, the other side may say to his people, to his assistants, this rude person, I don't want to meet him ever. Now you feel that you were polite and nice and told jokes and whatever, and you saw that the other side was cooperative, and you don't understand. You did something like crossing your feet. In some cultures, this is a sin. Nobody will tell you anything. Or stretching your hand to a lady, or to a superior person who is higher than yourself in his or her degree. You should never do this in some cultures. So it is manners, and you may say that it is marginal, but it can ruin meetings. And I was aware of some of such meetings when people, for example, felt that they were very open and frank, and the other side could not accept this frankness because it was not done. You can do it in your own culture with your own people, but not in certain other cultures, and you have to know it and to respect it. So if you ask me, as a politician, as a statesman, what for me is this culture is that if I go somewhere, I must know at least the basics of the culture of my counterpart in order not to make a mistake. Again, the question is about the definition. If the definition is to know the arts of the other side, the music, the dances, to open your ear to sounds that usually you don't to open your ear to open your ear to sounds that you are not used to, and that at the beginning they are oi, I want it to end, and then later on you find the beauty of this music and can listen to it like you listen to Bach or Beethoven, this is of much importance. But I would not attribute, frankly, to that the most important level of interests. I mean, you can make peace without being in a kabuki theater with the Japanese for 9 hours, for example. It's not a must. It's better than that you can go to the kabuki and say at the end, without lying, I enjoyed it. Okay, but what is important, at least according to my experience, is not to offend. And I mean, it happens also in the same cultures that you don't intend to offend somebody. Sometimes if you want to offend, it is okay. But if you don't want to offend, and you do offend, because something, I mean, was wrong in especially in your sense of humor, something that you understand perfectly. I mean, you yourself understand your own joke, but for the other side, sense of humor is very dangerous because it can also be insulting in the subjective way your counterpart is listening to you. So I think that for me, you have in culture actually two sides. One is like in other areas of life, what to do and what not to do. In the area of not to do, you have to be very, very knowledgeable. In the area of to do, if you can enjoy the culture of other parties, it is a big advantage. Because, you know, if I'm going with you to a concert and I see that you are half asleep most of the concert, I feel bad because I mean, I would like you to enjoy the concert. I am enjoying it tremendously. The conductor, the whole orchestra, the way it is done. I mean, I can understand that it is not maybe the best orchestra, but that they are doing their best. I can know sometimes when I listen to music who was the conductor. It is not always, but sometimes I can guess. And for you, it's all the same, all the concerts, all the Beethovens and Schuberts in this world, and you are sleeping. It's a bad feeling, right? So if it is done in a political context, and my friends don't enjoy the kind of art, of paintings, of music, of dancing that I may enjoy, it is problematic, but it is not so harmful. The harmful part of the cultural diplomacy in my eyes, and I'm not an expert on it, is what not to do. Be careful. You have to be very careful. And I'm stressing the issue of humor, because your jokes are not necessarily the joke of the others, especially if it is a very different culture, and you may really ruin all your effort if the other side doesn't understand your humor. So don't tell jokes, for example, if you are not sure that the recipient of the jokes will understand what you are saying to him. Especially if you are one of those who tells a joke and begins to laugh. So you tells me a joke, I don't laugh, I don't smile, maybe I don't understand, and you are laughing and putting me like an idiot in the meeting. So it may happen also in the same culture, and it does happen. But if it is in a context of a political meeting with the other side, it may be really harmful. I mean, you know that what people remember of meetings are sometimes such marginal issues. I mean, that I can tell you that, I mean, I met with one of the German chancellors, and what I remember from the meeting is that he put tobacco on his hand and smelled it.
Okay.
There were so many other issues on the agenda. You know, it is, I mean, and still you remember the marginal things. And so one should be careful about these things. And this is part of what we call culture, because the definition of culture is very, very wide. It's almost all what we do in life is culture. You say he is not a cultural guy. What do you mean by that? Not that he is not a painter or a sculptor. He doesn't behave as a cultural person should behave. So it is a matter of behavior, first and foremost. Well, what I can say is that it is new for me too. I mean, when I taught in Tel Aviv University, it was not part of our curriculum, and sometimes, especially when you are more experienced, you know that things are happening, and you don't know where to categorize them. What is it exactly that happened to me? I had a meeting, we negotiated, but I didn't see it with Robert Dahl or with any other political scientist, but it has to be referred to. And so I can understand, I mean, maybe I would not have suggested the idea, but once it is there, I can very well understand how important it is. Like many other areas that were born from philosophy, and I mean, for example, in the art of negotiations. I mean, people believe that the art of negotiations is you want to sell the car in a very high price, and there is a buyer who wants a low price. Then you meet together and say, no, I go home. I mean, if you don't give me this price, and the other side is like in a market, afraid of you, afraid that you will run, and he says, okay, I am ready to something which is between what you said and I said, and usually it is halfway, and you have an agreement. Nonsense. Nonsense. This is not a way to manage the conflict. Why? Because, or to manage this is not a way to manage the negotiations. Why? Because if you come to the other side and says, okay, these are the issues that I want to raise with you, A, B, C, in our case, Jerusalem, refugees, borders, settlements, whatever, and I'm not going to return home if I don't get all these things. The other side is not aware of what is really important for you, because you don't expose your cards. You know how to negotiate. You don't know how to negotiate, because the other side may say to you, okay, you know what, this is your list, I will give you A and Z. Now what is your compromise? And you say to yourself, how stupid I was. I mean, actually these are things which I put because I felt that I have to compromise on something. not because I want to get it. But you cannot say, forget about A and Z. I mean, they are not the important things for me. You can't, and you find yourself at the end of the day getting what you didn't want and losing something which was very, very precious for you.
Better to say B and C I need.
Now,
let's talk about it.
Now, if you come and say, hey, I want to tell you something. My real red lines are that and that and that. The instinctive way is to say, hey, you are inexperienced. You don't really expose your red lines because, for the other side, it is impossible. You will end up by non-agreement. If the other side knows your red lines and you know the red lines on the other side, you find yourself eventually negotiating on the red lines, because you cannot go back home with all your red lines achieved. No way. Even if it is red lines, even if your boss is telling you, I am not going to give up on any of these red lines, you know that eventually he or she will give up. Because this is the negotiations. Things that they had not even thought that they would any way give up on. They will have to do that. So if you are sincere with the other side and you know what is really important for them, then you can throw away all the nonsense, negotiate about the important things, and say to the other side, okay, these are things that I can compromise with you. It will be very difficult for me to convince my client, so-called, to compromise, but what I need from you is that I can tell him or her that I got A, B, and C. And then it is much easier to negotiate. Don't negotiate on things that you don't want, or you know in advance that you can give up on easily. So this is the culture of negotiations. And it is so strange that the most experienced people still believe that they are selling a car. First of all, the culture of diplomacy is universal. Many of the things which are relevant for our conflict is relevant for the Irish-British conflict, for the Kashmir conflict, and about 70 other international conflicts which exist today in the world. When you speak about the Middle East, there are some points which are unique to the region. You have to know them. You have to know how you dress in a meeting with the other side, even if the other side comes with an abaya and sandals. You will not come with sandals to a meeting with him, because this is his official clothes. You have to come with your official clothes. For you, a suit with a tie, for him, a suit with a tie is the counter dress for his abaya and his sandals. And so there are issues which are quite unique for the region, but generally speaking, it is universal. And if you dismiss the importance of culture in negotiations, in the way you talk to the other side, the way you refer, whether for example, for Israelis, we use to call each other by first name. Even the prime ministers and others. But when you meet somebody from another country negotiating with him, and even if you feel friendly with him, there is a process of titoyer, and you cannot easily jump on it unilaterally. You don't call the other John if he did not say to you, you can call me John, and then you say, okay, you can call me Yossi. But without this small step, if you just call him John, and he never called you Yossi, then he feels like it, hey, I'm not your friend from the kindergarten. I mean, why are you calling me this way? The Israeli may say, this is our way to show our friendship. The other side will say, this is actually, it proves to me that you are a rude guy. So, I mean, all these things are there. They are part of the culture. It seems sometimes superfluous. We don't need it. But then you don't understand sometimes what is happening and how can it help you in promoting if it is peace talks or economic talks and many other things. And I think that the most important thing is to understand what does the other side want and to try to cater to these wishes if you know that fulfilling the wishes of the other side is not going to be harmful for you. Sometimes in talks, in negotiations, actually the idea of a zero sum, that whatever you get is something that is taken from me, causes us to punish the other side, so-called, and to prove that we got it, although it gives us nothing. And I think that trying to see the world through the eyes of the other side, understand what is important, and understand that you can go a very far way towards the other side in order to allow him the feeling that he did not lose the negotiations. I mean, if you are much stronger than the other side and your counterpart feels that he has no other chance but to submit, you are letting him with a feeling of bitterness. Although sometimes it is abused. I give you an example. The chairman of the Palestinian Liberation Movement of the PLO, Yasser Arafat. In many times I remember negotiating with him, sometimes tete-a-tete, sometimes as a part of a delegation. He used to say at the end of the meeting, you have the upper hand. Now, it gives you the feeling that somehow you abused him, that you abused the situation of your strength vis-a-vis his weakness, and that he had to give up on something that he didn't want to give up. And so this is also something, I mean, you should not give people on the other side the feeling that they agreed with you on a paper in which actually they gave up on things which they shouldn't give up on. If it is possible. Sometimes it is used in order to give you the feeling, the guilt feeling. You now use that you are so the fact that you are so strong, and I gave up on my I don't know what, and it also happened. But generally speaking, the feeling of somebody who actually lost the battle for peace or for an agreement is a bad feeling, because eventually he will take revenge, and you don't want it.